All right. So we're going to be talking about one of the hottest topics there is to talk about in the Amazon space. Well, let's just say this. There's always hot topics, but this one is always one of those hot topics, and that is pay-per-click advertising. Because if you do it well, you could bring a lot of money into your business. And if you don't, you could just be donating money to Amazon's bottom line profits. So to help us along that journey, I am so excited that today we have Andy Craig from Ad Habit, who's going to be our guest expert, sharing lots of stuff when it comes to ads. So Andy, first off, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to go in a couple of different directions, and then my brain wasn't sure which one to select there. But basically, we're going to be talking about what it comes down to with being successful with your Amazon ads. And I'm excited to have Andy, because Andy and I have gotten to know each other for about 3 years now. He has been in the trenches figuring out ads, and he helps sellers with their ads, and he knows his stuff. And he is one who both asks insightful questions and also has very helpful answers. So I'm super excited to have him. So we're going to get into a couple of the comments we've already had folks have. One thing I will say is we will be cutting this off at the top of the hour. So it is noon Eastern time now. So at 12:59, we'll be cutting it off because I want to be respectful of everyone's time that's watching, as well as Andy's time. So if you have questions, the sooner you get them in, the sooner you get them answered. Oftentimes in live streams like this, everyone waits to the last minute to try to get their question in, but that probably won't get answered because we'll probably run out of time. But real quick, before we get into that, I'm going to do a quick bio here on Andy, or at least allow him to talk about himself. But before we do that, if you don't mind, folks, just put in the chat, use an emoji to describe how you feel about your ad campaigns at this particular moment in time. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not. I will say I will probably be rewarding participation from time to time throughout this. So if you're listening to this, there might be a little bit of a delay. But if you're listening to this, I would highly recommend that at some point in time when we ask for participation, you participate, because you might be rewarded for that. So while folks are deciding what emoji to use, Andy, tell us a little bit about your background in the Amazon advertising world.
Yeah, so I started my Amazon journey like many others, selling my own products. Launched that back when we first got together, and really spent a lot of time focusing on PPC because it seemed very important. So before I ever even launched my first product, I just watched hours and hours and hours and every course, everything I could figure out with Amazon PPC, and quickly realized you don't really know a lot until you start to do it yourself, right? You need to get in there, get your hands dirty, and make the decisions. I launched many products on Amazon, some winners, some failures, and got really good at the PPC side. So started helping different friends of mine do the PPC. And before you know it, I was just packed busy. So then that's where Ad Habit was born. I started that and, never looked back. Been running it for a couple of years now.
Awesome. So excited to have you here. And this might be a little bit premature, but let's just let the cat out of the bag. You are going to be joining us in May as a speaker at the upcoming PPC Mastery Summit. And so I'm going to give away recordings of last year's PPC Mastery Summit from last May. So we asked people to put in their emojis. Some people put in comments, which I did say emojis. So to be eligible, you got to put in emojis. So this is the last call. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 emojis that were put in. So why don't we do this? I was giving it one last second in case anybody snuck in one. Andy, pick a number between 1 and 6.
7.
Between 1 and 6.
I'm used to you saying 1 and 10.
Oh, no, 7. No, now 1 and 8.
7.
7. Okay. So that would be Josh Gibson got the money bag. So he's saying is bringing him money. So that's good. All right, let's go through them real quick. So Blaine, I guess a laughing face. Is he laughing at his ad campaigns right now? or maybe he's optimistic. Sometimes it's hard to tell with emojis what they're trying to get across. This one, I don't even know what that is. I guess a crying face. The rendering of it here in StreamYard looks kind of odd. Flash there. Oh, Frederick had gave it upside down smiley face. So it's like having a good attitude about it, but being realistic, I guess, is kind of the way to look at that. Number 4 here is Envy Nutri. Oh, a tear. So shedding a tear. So hopefully, Envy Nutri, we can help you turn that frown upside down, as people say. Tanavu also gave a upside down emoji. So 2 upside down smiley face emojis. So we have a trend here. And then Yvonne gave a penguin blue waving tear. We must not have the ability to render that emoji, but it's very specific. So the penguin's waving a blue flag apparently. So and then Josh, who won the recordings. So Josh, just email Kevin at myamazonguy.com. Let me know that you won the recordings to last year's PPC Mastery Summit, and I will get you hooked up with that. So just email Kevin at myamazonguy.com. And I think, Josh, you and I have corresponded before, so you probably can just pull up an old email and hit reply. Whole Nature, that's a non-colorful smiley face. That's a black and white one. I think that's a frown. I hate to show my age here, but I might have to start pulling out the glasses when I'm looking at some of the emojis. So bear with me here, folks. Ginger gave also the crying face, and Fran a different crying face. I guess a crying bug eyes, something.
And hopefully we can help with a lot of these frowns in here.
Yes, so we're going to turn those frowns upside down. So
yeah.
So Andy again is joining us from Ad Habit. So just real quick before we get into some questions, I would suggest, since many of you are watching on YouTube, while you're doing this, go ahead and head on over to his YouTube channel. So if you just look up Andy Craig, let me share my screen. You can come over here and just hit the little subscribe button and subscribe, and you can be a subscriber of Andy's channel, where he talks a lot about ads, how to fix high ACoS, all kinds of good stuff. Very high quality production value there, Andy. I'm curious what you're doing with your lighting setup and your filters and whatnot. You've done a good job there. So, and then folks can also head over to ad-habit.com, as well as follow Andy on LinkedIn. So with all of that, highly recommend that we get questions answered for folks. But sorry, I'm like trying to figure out where my button was to remove that. But go ahead and ask your questions in the chat, folks. And the sooner you get to them, the sooner we will answer them. We will go somewhat in order, but I reserve the rights to go out of order as I see fit. And that's just to keep things moving along, because sometimes people ask a question that pertains as a follow-up question or would go well with what we were just talking about. So if I skip you, it's nothing personal. So with that, Palash says hi. Blaine says good morning, Kevin and Andy from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Kevin, it's been some time since your last hosting spot. Will you be returning regularly or just a cameo appearance? For now, I might do this again in another couple weeks. We'll see. I had the distinct opportunity to be here with Andy, so I had to seize the opportunity while I could. Hey guys, you're both looking good. Well, thank you for that. Especially Andy with the filters and the lighting and the tacos in the background.
The real sign right here.
That's fake. A very good sign. That's a neon sign.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So then question comes in from Tanaview. Hi, Meg guys. Should I control my PPC launch? I mean, how long should I wait to see the results once launched and optimize my keywords? This, as all of these are probably controversial. And so I'm giving Andy the platform to give us his opinion on this question.
Yeah, of course. As far as PPC launch goes, it is so different with every niche I've seen. I've been in over 1,000 different accounts and seen performance all over the place, right? I
Hmm.
think the biggest thing that you need to do is set up some goals. Look at what your numbers are and set goals to improve it and set a strategy in place to do that as well. So it's not that you should just be launching the product, but you should see improvements over time, right? Should you see improvements in the first month? Yes. Second month, it should get better. Third month, eventually you'll kind of probably hit like a steady state based on your niche, your products, your conversion rates. But you should always see some sort of improvement. And yes, you should be optimizing things. You should always be optimizing your bids. I take a very data focused approach to it. You know, the keywords, the targets that are driving a lot more traffic, you should probably optimize those more frequently than say the ones that are getting 2 clicks a week. If you're getting 10 clicks a day, then you might want to optimize that every couple of days, right?
Hmm.
So always be optimizing your budgets, your bids, your placement modifiers. Check out your placements on where you're showing up, and test out different placement modifiers as well to see if you might perform better in a different placement. And then if you're not seeing good results, then really look into your conversion rate and
Mm.
compare your listings realistically with your competitors. Because if you got a competitor that has 3,000 reviews at 4.7 stars and you're at 3.9, it's very hard to compete with that. So focus on reviews, focus on generating very high quality reviews, because you have to do that to compete with niches with really good competitors.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Oh, and then what would you say would be a sufficient data point to start looking at? So you mentioned if you're doing like
Mhm.
2 a week or whatever, don't look at it right all the time, every day. But like, what about when would you say is enough clicks to at least start optimizing maybe that particular keyword?
I would say the majority of it, you're going to see around 10 clicks to get a sale, like as
Mm.
an average, like a 10% conversion rate. But if you have a 5% conversion rate, it's going to take you 20 clicks. So I'm going to optimize anything over like 3, 4 clicks. I'm going to start to tweak the bids a little bit. But you might not see a sale yet with that little of clicks. You have to give it a little bit of time to generate enough. But you can start to make slow incremental adjustments. If you're getting clicks and no sales, start to bring it down. If you start seeing sales, right, don't wait until you get 10 clicks. Just start to increase the bids a little bit to allow more traffic to come in,
Mhm.
and capitalize on the performance.
Awesome. All right. So Jaleel asks, have you experimented with splitting up your auto campaigns into 4 instead of running all 4 match types in one campaign? So basically, I'm assuming this is, you've got some people talk about having like just one match type, like close match, um, loose match, or whatever. I'm drawing a blank on the other two.
Complements,
Um,
substitutes. Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. You bailed me out there. So basically, having one per campaign. What are your thoughts on this
That is
strategy?
the way we prefer to do things.
Mm.
If you do have a limited budget, some people like to keep one auto campaign, so the budgets aren't split up. But we do prefer at Ad Habit to do, one automatic target group per campaign. And one of the biggest reasons behind that is when Amazon, implemented the placement modifiers, and because those have always been at the campaign level, close match, you may want to show up on top of search, but compliments, you might not want to. So it's really hard to control those placement modifiers when they're all in the same campaign together.
Mm. Got it. Okay. Good point. And then it gives you more control over budget. It would be so nice if Amazon was more like Facebook, where you could have control at the ad group level or
Hmm.
some other
Yeah.
level. But
And we
with more
always run
niche.
one ad group per campaign because,
Mhm.
that budget is and the placements are set at the campaign level.
True, true, true. As I guess in my scenario, my hypothetical, very hypothetical scenario, you could have an ad group that has each of them. But I don't even know if that's mechanically possible. Never mind. I'm getting ahead of my wish list.
I've seen people
Um,
do that. I've seen people put 4 ad groups and only one automatic targeted group per ad group, which
uh-huh.
doesn't really do anything different because
Right,
there's
because
no
you have no
control of ad group.
control over the budget
Yeah,
per
exactly.
each. Yeah. Oh, Ryan sent, I couldn't send one as my I was on my phone referring to the emoji, but we're
Mhm.
glad to have you. Good little if my eyes aren't deceiving me, the everything's okay emoji. Karen Karan asks, "Hi guys, any actionable advice on how to best advertise repeat purchase products like supplements and drink mixes specific campaigns, what's the target, etc. ACoS is always high.
So for the repeat purchases, you could always get into your sponsored display ads and start targeting people that have either visited your listing or people that have purchased in the past. And you can
Mhm.
split that up between, I think, 7, 14, 30, and 90 days to retarget them. So if you know on average like how long it should take for somebody to use your product, you could set up that retargeting for that. And then
Mhm.
also, if you're eligible for subscribe and save, now you could add subscribe and save coupons and things like that to incentivize people signing up for that.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point, because with a lot of things in business in general outside of Amazon, you would look at your lifetime value of a customer. And so, with something like supplements, you don't get all the great data necessarily, but you can get some to know, like, if somebody's on subscribe and save for a certain amount of time on average, that a new subscribe and save customer could be worth X amount. It's not just one purchase, it's
Mhm.
3, 5, 10, whatever it is on average. Which could help you if your ACoSs are high, because you're not looking at just for that one purchase. You're looking for the potential future purchases that they would on average make.
Yeah, if you know like each person on average orders 5 products, then
Mhm.
your actual real ACoS would change because they're on average people are going to come back.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. When updating budgets, are you in favor of allocating most budget to campaigns with lowest ACoS regarding of how many sales versus campaigns with the most sales regardless of ACoS? Or is that or my follow-up question is that even the right way to look at budget?
So as far as budgets, we always optimize them at minimum once per week, but we want to keep an eye on anything running out of budget. So when we're optimizing, we are looking at ACoS, right? If it's
Mhm.
performing well, we feed it more budget. Even if we're not hitting that daily budget, we'd like to still send a signal to Amazon like, hey, this is a great campaign. You know, give us some more room, give us some more impressions, and sometimes that does work. But if you are very budget conscious, you could what you could do is look at how much that campaign is spending per day. And if you really want to limit it from spending, you could, bring your budget down to the below average spend per day to try to get it under control before you start increasing the budget again. But be very careful if you have certain campaigns that are your big sales drivers, right? Try not to pause those or really
Mhm.
drastically lower the budget because you're going to see a huge drop in sales when that happens.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because really what it comes down to is you're putting dollars in to get dollars out. And we usually think of it in terms of like the graphic, not graphic, but the light you have behind you, tacos, short for total advertised cost of spend, or just ACoS. But if you think of it from more of the terms of ROAS, which is how people would think of it in like Google or
Mhm.
Facebook, you put a dollar in, how much are you getting back in return? And so if you're profitable and you have enough inventory, and inventory is not the profit or not the problem, you don't want to run out really ever
Yeah.
on that campaign. Now you always want to optimize it because things could change, but if you're budget conscious, I'd almost, and you could tell me if you disagree, Andy, something that's profitable, let it just run forever. And then things that are less profitable or not profitable, maybe those you focus on an actual total cumulative budget, either on a spreadsheet or in a portfolio or a software tool.
Yeah, exactly. And if let's say you have something that was performing well for a while, then all of a sudden stopped, it's really important to look at the history of a campaign as well, because sometimes it just might be a minor thing to where performance has dropped. Um, so get into the history. Like if you go into your campaign manager inside your ad groups or inside your campaign, you could see history and changes that were made. So you could try to track why the performance changed a certain direction and figure out what you changed in the account to make that happen.
Okay, good. And then here, this example is one order, 2% ACoS versus 25 orders and 120% ACoS.
Yeah, I would say for the 120% ACoS one, you want to make slow incremental, decreases probably in your bids, um, and start to bring that back down. Because if you make a huge change, let's say you cut your bids by 50%, you're probably just going to stop getting orders in that campaign for the most part. And there might just be some bad apples inside that campaign that are causing a lot of the waste. So just get those ones under control. Allow your other ones to take over and fix that ACoS.
Yeah, absolutely. And you may also want to look at like, is this a broad match keyword where it's one particular search term?
Yeah.
It's shoes for men, and everybody keeps looking up red shoes for men, and you're showing up for it, and you're not red, so it's not really relevant. Or you just have a competitor with a lot more reviews who's getting up a lot more of the sales than you. So sometimes you have to just decide you're gonna run unprofitably or move on.
Yeah, and to speak on what you said about like the broader phrase, I used to sell a flashlight, and I would always get people typing in UV flashlight, which mine was not an ultraviolet flashlight. So
Mm,
getting a list of negative phrase match keywords could help cut out a lot of waste as well. So like adding UV and ultraviolet as negative phrase to prevent all these you know death by 1,000 clicks from happening inside those auto broadened phrase can help a lot as well.
all right, good. All right. Say I resell a product where the profit is $10 per sale after fees. I'm willing to commit $3 towards advertising. So a $3 cost per acquisition. How do I go about making sure I don't spend more than $3 per sale?
Well, that's really based on the conversion rate, I would say.
Mhm.
So pay attention to that conversion rate, because between the cost per click and your conversion rate, it's going to determine what that cost per sale is going to be. So make sure you're paying attention to both of those metrics and they're aligned. You may want to set a max like cost per click as well, or a max bid, so you never go past that based on like your best conversion rate. Because
Sure.
if you're bidding $5 and you have a bad conversion rate, it's probably not going to do very well.
Yeah, good point. And let's just say hypothetically, this is a $30 product. You could take $3 divided by 30. So basically that's 10%. So you could have
Yep.
a 10% ACoS. That might be kind of aggressive. And so the one thing that kind of jumps out to me is the word resell. So if you're a reseller of a product, you don't necessarily care as much about the health of the listing itself, unless you're doing pallets and pallets and resharing or the buy box over and over again. Then maybe you're kind of okay with not meeting your profitability goals because you're going for, I don't know which direction people are going to see my finger point, but you're going more for tacos. And so if it makes sense, you could go for the tacos strategy of your total amount spend. Does it bring you whatever that percentage is? Hopefully that made sense. All right. Then next up, we've got Yvonne Miller. What's a good process for tracking your ads? I optimize, but I don't have a tracking system. Oh, did I lose you, Andy?
No, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I think it
Oh,
kind of
okay.
flubbed for a second.
Okay, sorry about that. What's a good process for tracking your ads? I optimize but don't have a tracking system. There's plenty of softwares out there that can help a lot with that tracking, as far as tracking your numbers, or you could do it manually and pull out your business reports, pull out a lot of different sponsored products reports in order to set it up yourself. But I mean, feel free to message me as well on LinkedIn. I could show you what I recommend the most for that.
Yeah, and if you're doing this yourself, one of the things I've been guilty of over the years is trying too hard to figure out like all the things I did in the past. But at a certain point, like, when you're driving, you look, your rear view mirror is this big and what's in front of you is much bigger. It's almost, I think, even more important when you're optimizing ad campaigns, unless you're looking at like, okay, during, Black Friday last year, what were my numbers looking like?
Hmm.
Outside of that, like, just a regular week, does it really matter that much what the past was? And I've been guilty of this sometimes too, like trying to create this prison for myself, trying to figure out the past. And I'm like, it doesn't even matter because it's all so dynamic of everything that's happening around us. But having some tracking is good, but if you're doing this on your own, it might be too much. That's my caution and fear for folks.
I do think it's very important to track your numbers, because
Mhm.
it's hard to set up those goals, like I said in the beginning, if you're not tracking things.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to pinpoint exactly what's working well or what's not working well by tracking all the numbers. And then you'll figure out what changes need to be made.
Yeah, exactly. And focus on the right metrics. What would be those metrics that you would suggest folks focus on in the beginning?
You definitely want to focus on the ACoS. You want to focus on that
Mhm.
tacos. Look at your conversion rate, your click through rate, um, your cost per click. Right. You want to figure out that cost per acquisition as well, like the other person said. So you know, like, okay, what's my max bid that I should be putting in, and keep that right window based on the conversion rate. And then of course, not just PPC, because I see sellers miss this all the time, and what a big impact that conversion rate has on overall performance, right? Always
Mm.
optimize for that conversion rate, see how to improve it, and see what metrics, not what metrics, but what areas in your listing that you could change to, get that conversion rate bump.
Awesome. All right. Tanya Bryant asks, how should I manage keywords that continue to show less than top 5% top of search?
So, I mean, there's always the placement modifier, and then you also have that top of search impression share. So, if you're not showing up a lot on the top of search, you either have to push up that modifier or increase your bids. But of course, in order to do that, you need to be converting. Generally, top of search does convert a lot better. So, if for some reason you're not, then you want to get into that listing, get into the actual search results pages as well on Amazon. Look at your brand analytics areas like that, and figure out who is selling the best at the top of search and why, and really analyze and
Mm.
figure out how to get that conversion rate for that top of search so you can really scale up your ads.
Yeah, exactly. Is your listing converting? Are you getting the clicks? So,
Mhm.
if you're Amazon, at the end of the day, you don't really care who is at the top of the search. You care when someone searches for garlic press or whatever widget, who's going to be more likely to come out on the other side with a sale, and how much money are they as a company making off of that. So they can make more money off of someone with a higher conversion rate who has a lower bid for top of search and put them in that premium spot because they're more likely to make the money. So if you're not making them the money, how can you make them the money? As Zig Ziglar would say, you can have anything in life you want as long as you get other people what they want.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll even notice sometimes Amazon almost gives you a discount on your bids, on your cost per click, because you convert well. Like,
Mhm.
they'll make someone else pay more to be up there than they would you if you're converting really well.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so important to them. We might think of it as like there's an infinite number of people searching for stuff, but
Mhm.
at a certain point, they have an inventory and they have a
Yeah.
lot of people on their website, but there's only so many people at the end of the day, even though the numbers are huge.
Yeah.
All right. Jaleel asks, I know it's been trending to use 6 or less keyword per campaign, especially when dividing keywords by search volume. If you're targeting long tail, low volume keywords, would it be okay to do 10 plus in a campaign?
Yeah, I think that's fine in my experience. If they're not big keywords, low search volume or no search volume, if you're just like throwing a bunch of Spanish keywords in a campaign or something like that, I don't need to stick to that less than 10 keywords per campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Because, all goes back to you're trying to control your budget there,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. And then also on top of that, some of my best keywords, I like to run single keyword campaigns because those are ones that are driving a lot of traffic, and I want to have
Mm,
as much control as possible on them.
yeah, that's a good point. All right. Eddie asks, in relation to the sign in the background there, how do you optimize campaigns keeping tacos in mind? Amazon doesn't give organic keyword sales data.
So the best way to look at, tacos on a keyword level is to really go back to your search query performance report if you have brand registry, which I know my Amazon guy offers that service to get brand
We
registry.
do. Thank you.
There's
We can
that.
get you a trademark and we can
Yeah.
get you brand registered or the ability to brand register relatively quickly, as
Yep.
long as you have a trademarkable brand.
I've sent many clients that way. So great service.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
so yeah, you want to look at that. You want to look at your organic ranking to figure out, if you're getting organic sales there. And part of it too is like, if you start to push certain, say one of your main keywords, you're at 50%, you start to push a lot harder, you're still converting pretty well, but now you're at 100%. Don't just look at your ads performance because Amazon attribution isn't always perfect. Look at
Mhm.
how that tacos is across your entire account. Test
Mm.
different ACoS, and figure out what your overall profit is at the end of the day.
Yeah. Exactly. And one thing I will say on that note, you mentioned the attribution isn't perfect. One of the things we got to realize as Amazon sellers, and I've been guilty of this too, like, oh, they're missing this one here or whatever. Dealing with Google ads, because I do a lot of Google ads for my Amazon guy, it is so hard to do any sort of attribution, like, for like booked camp or trying to book calls and things of that nature. It's so hard. Amazon gives us so much data that is better than everyone else. And sometimes, we put so much pressure on ourselves, like, oh, we got to have more data, more data, more data, more data, more data, more data. But at the end of the day, focus on the main things. And I think Andy is giving us a lot of good tips here. All right. So Brian B asks, in launch, what is the threshold you use to determine if ACoS is too high or is too much? I have a campaign right now. It's doing 140% ACoS. That is, you might as well just write a check to Jeff Bezos and call it a day.
Yeah, I've seen.
We've all been there, though.
I've seen that. I've seen worse than that. It really boils down to where your ad spend is allocated. Are you actually going towards your best, most relevant keywords? I think in the beginning, when you're first launching, I don't focus on like, oh, what's the 80,000 searches a month keyword? I want to start off with my most relevant keywords where I'm likely to convert the best, because you're going to have a lower conversion rate in the beginning. And you're always going to have a better conversion rate on those most relevant ones. So make sure your ad spend is focused. And because if you can't rank for, stainless steel garlic press, you're definitely not going to be able to rank for garlic press, right? So focus on those most relevant ones. Get organically ranked there first before you just start, pushing ad spend all over the place across every keyword on Amazon.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so being kind of surgical there, which leads us into the next question that someone asks: how many keywords do we use in one campaign? Which you kind of touched on this earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it depends also like how big your account is. If you have hundreds of products, it gets hard to do, single keyword campaigns or 5 keywords per campaign, because it ends up being a lot of work. It depends on how big your team is as well. But generally, for most of the sellers I work with, we do max 5 keywords per campaign for the most part. But if they don't have search volume, if you're just, throwing a bunch of random keywords in campaigns, I think 20, 30, 40 keywords in those are fine. But for my best ones, I do use single keyword campaigns. Now, exact match is better for that. So if you do phrase and broad, maybe you'll even, move it to 5 keywords on those big ones. But test it. And one thing we also do is we go through the campaigns, and over time, if there's targets that we've increased the bids, we've hit our max bid, and we're still not getting traction, we'll just pause it and relaunch it into a new campaign. We won't leave it in there to do nothing, because what's the point?
Got it. All right. So this is just a reminder, folks, that we are going to be going until the top of the hour. So if you have questions, Andy has answers, but he only has so much time. So what I would suggest doing is, if you've not already gotten your question in, get your question in. I'll do my best to go somewhat first in, first out, but I only have so much time to get to, and I will go out of order from time to time if I see fit that it fits with the conversation that we're going on. And just a quick little plug here. Andy is joining us from Ad Habit. You can go check him out over at ad-habit.com, like you see there on the banner. So, all right. So with that, now let's get to another question. Where was I before? Oh, here we go. Steve S. asks, what are the stages of PPC? Launch, grow, maintain. Can you talk more in depth about this, please? Which I think he's got a follow-up here. Let's say I have unlimited money and I don't care about spend. What's the best way to get the most exposure and spend the quickest to get my product shown?
So I would say the stages of PPC are kind of just like you said: launch, grow, maintain. But we don't know how exactly long that's going to take. It really depends on so many different factors based on the conversion rates. But in order to get the sales, you have to show up, right? So you have to run the PPC. And if you do have that unlimited budget, you could launch as much as you possibly can: sponsor product, sponsor brand, sponsor display. and just launch kind of all over the place. But Amazon is still going to control what impressions you get where. So you still want to make sure you're getting a lot of traction on those most relevant keywords towards your products, because that's where you should convert the best. So I always want to go through and make sure we're getting the traffic on those keywords that we know have high search volume. We know we're super relevant. So pay attention to those, but you still want to run the discovery, right? You want to make sure you're using Amazon's different campaigns, the auto, the broad, the phrase, categories, expanded to try to go out and find out where you're going to convert the best, so you can make sure to focus on those. So if you're willing to spend the money, you're probably going to have a high ACoS in the beginning, but it allows you to get a lot of the data super fast and kind of grow quicker, because that sales velocity is going to drop your BSR, and it's going to improve your organic ranking, because you're willing to kind of just hemorrhage cash.
Yeah, and if you're willing to pay, they're willing to let you play.
Oh yeah, they'll let you spend it.
Oh, they'll let you.
But one thing that I notice a lot, if you're not converting well, at some point Amazon will stop letting you spend it. Like they'll kind of limit your impressions and your traffic if you just don't convert.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into a follow-up question is sometimes people talk about the honeymoon period. What are your thoughts on kind of that initial, like when you start getting new impressions in the beginning? Do you reset it by rerunning your campaigns? What are your thoughts?
When you say like rerunning, do you mean like pausing and starting again, or
like you had mentioned before with let's say you have keywords that aren't showing up, just running them in a new campaign?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. So if we always set up a max bid with each one of our products that we're working with, and we inch up the bids over time. If we're not getting clicks, not getting enough data to optimize them, we just continue to inch them up until we hit that max bid. And we'll try different strategies, like maybe switch from dynamic bids down only to fixed bids or up and down. And at some point, everything we tried doesn't work, so we just relaunch them into new campaigns. And we still usually stick with that 5 keywords per campaign for the most part.
Cool. All right. So next up, Jalil asks, when doing category targeting, do you always refine by price, and have you had success refining in other ways as well? So when you're trying to figure out which products to target.
So with a category, you could refine them, and the more you refine them, you're likely to get a lot less traffic, but you're also more than likely to have a better ACoS, because let's say you're targeting other competitors that are 3 stars or less, and you're at 4 or 5 stars. You should convert better than them, so those should perform better, but you're showing up less. So I'll run them in multiple different ways. I'll run different campaigns based on like that different filters, and then we'll also run campaigns with no filters at all. And part of that too is just going in there and adding the negatives as the data comes through, adding those negative product targets in those categories, and the expanded product targeting. One thing I noticed too, a lot of new sellers, Amazon always defaults to expanded product targeting when you're launching. And I highly suggest to do your competitor research. Make sure you're launching exact match product targeting before you go too wild with the expanded one.
Awesome. All right. So Divya asks, I just want to understand, what are the key metrics to keep in mind for consecutive business growth apart from ACoS, ROAS, ad spend? Also, can you explain placement modifiers, please? So that's a 2-part question that are kind of separate topics.
Okay. So consecutive business growth apart.
Let's just say for other metrics you would look at other than ACoS, ROAS, ad spend, to keep your business growing consistently, maybe was the word.
Well, I would say obviously revenue is a big thing that you didn't.
You gotta have that.
Yeah, so you gotta have the revenue, and all these metrics that you kind of put in there, do play a big part in it, right? You have to get ad spend, you have to get revenue, and you could test sending outside traffic, right? That's another area on Amazon. Working with influencers, I've worked with brands that have grown to multiple 6 figures without ever running any PPC, because they've just done all influencer traffic, and it works pretty well. Let's see, what else do we got here? Can you please explain placement modifiers, please? So placement modifiers, for those of you that don't know, those are set at the campaign level. And Amazon will let you increase your bids to show up on certain placements. You have top of search, you have rest of search, and you have product pages. So if you're performing well into a certain area, I'd suggest to optimize those, increase those bid modifiers, and slowly do it. You can do it 5% at a time, increasing them. And we always optimize them just like we would our bids. We look at the ACoS and we, adjust them up or down based on if I'm hitting my target ACoS, if I'm too high, if I'm too low. But also, like, if it's a ranking campaign, and like the other gentleman said, like, if you don't care as much about spend, you just want to rank. If it's converting well, Amazon doesn't care if you have a 200% ACoS. If you're converting well and you're driving sales, you're going to increase organic rank. So maybe you have a specific ranking campaign where you want to put a high top of search modifier because it's converting so well. So I say test it.
Just like everything, test it, and it depends. All right. So Palash asks, what are some strategies for bidding competitively in Amazon PPC auctions?
So there's always that suggested bid, and you could always go above the suggested bid. That's bidding competitively, right? But like I've said multiple times, that conversion rate will ultimately tell you how profitable it's going to be. So if you're bidding competitively and your conversion rate is low, you're going to have a high ACoS there. So, increase your bids, put your bids high. That's the fastest way to get the most data. And then you could figure out, okay, how did I perform? And then adjust accordingly.
Yeah, because nothing signifies relevance to Amazon more than anything other than someone voted with their wallet.
Yep.
So sometimes, we talk about in the marketing space of people pulling out their wallet. I mean, technically, most people have their credit card already saved, but do they bother to go through with add to cart, confirming their address and all that other stuff that's sending it to where they want to send it and submitting the order? That the pain of giving away that money to Amazon versus what they want out of they're looking for, does your product tip those scales? And if it doesn't, then you can bid $100, but you're never going to rank for iPhone case if you're selling pens because it's not relevant. And then as you get more and more into relevancy, it comes down to conversions.
And to build on that as well, sometimes what will happen is you'll see a certain campaign dip and the ACoS goes really high. Go back to that search query performance report, look at your organic ranking to see, like, am I still getting organic sales? So, because sometimes people will buy organically and not purchase through your ad. So keep an eye on that because you may still be doing okay on that keyword. It's just you have a slight, small hiccup with your ads to where ACoS goes high.
Got it. You talked a little bit about expanded product targeting for ASIN campaigns. Have you had good success with it? What was thinking of doing an expanded targeting campaign, my own product, to generate more converting ASIN targets?
Me, myself, I've seen it hit or miss. I mean, there's so many different accounts I've been in, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I just go back to that same test it and find out kind of mentality. I haven't seen overall the best results with expanded as much as we do with keyword targeting, but there's some clients I have that they just kill it with product targeting and it does better than their keyword. So and it's funny too, because you'll see a product target, you'll look at where the sales are coming from. They're coming from top of search, but Amazon doesn't tell us what keywords we're showing up for, but the data tells us it's working good. So we just kind of lean into it.
Got it. And then John Aspinall, who is works here at my Amazon guy.
Familiar.
How can I make more sales through PPC so I can sit on the beach and be rich? Side note, super jelly of Andy's lights. I need one, Meg. So I think he's trying to get Steven to buy him a light like yours. But yeah, so if you want to just be rich, just follow this 3-step checklist and you'll be generationally rich for years to come, because as we say, it's all just passive income. It's simple.
Oh yeah.
Which we're being facetious here. All right. So then what do we have here? So Ryan asks, where would be the best place to go to learn how to do PPC ourselves?
So there's plenty of courses out there, but be careful because there's plenty of fake gurus out there as well that are using, strategies that are no longer working on Amazon. I've always subscribed to YouTube University.
Mhm.
I would say the Mastery Summits is a place where I learned a ton. So definitely, you know, join Kevin in the Mastery Summits. There's so many experts in there giving away just so much free information. And just, I say YouTube University is the best. Remember, Amazon has a ton of free resources as well to really get the basics under control. And then just, you're going to learn the most by testing it. But myself and many other Amazon advertising agencies offer free audits on accounts. So take advantage of that. Get the free audits, get experts' uh, opinions, and just keep learning as much as you can. Try not to change things too much, because one thing I'll notice people do is they'll watch a video on a new strategy, pause all their campaigns, and start from scratch.
Yes, I've seen that too.
I seen that today, right? I had a guy I talked to today, and that's what he did. He took a course, paused everything that had years of data, and he started from scratch. So don't do that.
Mhm.
Just start pivoting over time, right? Let's say you have hundreds of keywords in your campaigns right now, and a lot of them are making sales. Don't all of a sudden pause that and start 5 keywords per campaign. Just from now on, do 5 keywords per campaign. Keep the campaigns running that are doing well, and just implement those new strategies as you go.
Yeah, and that's a good point that, you know, don't get too excited and don't get too worked up. Don't get too excited about good results or the latest shiny object, and don't get too depressed if things aren't going well. I remember when I first started and I have one product, this is back in 2016. Um, it would be like 11 o'clock. I didn't have as many sales as I thought I should have or whatever. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
give it time. Give it time. Sometimes the data is slow to catch up. You're not looking at, if you're looking at things like on a minute by minute standpoint, you're looking at it too often. Now you don't want to wait like a year to optimize your campaigns, but there's a healthy medium. But so as we mentioned earlier, Andy will be a speaker at the upcoming PPC Mastery Summit. So Ryan, since you asked this question, I'm going to go ahead and hook you up. Email Kevin@myamazonguy.com, Kevin@myamazonguy.com, and I'll get you access to last year's PPC Mastery Summit from last May. So we'll get you hooked up with that. All right, Jordan
Real
Lee
quick,
Smith.
real
Yes.
quick to speak on the last thing too is what you said with the shiny object syndrome. Be careful of that too, because Amazon recently rolled out sponsored TV ads, and I had a client that was just like, "Hey, we need to get this going. We need to get this going."
Mm.
And I've already tested it with several accounts. Haven't seen the best performance, and he went ahead and launched it. His cost per click was $70,
Oh my God.
and he has a $20 product. So I'm like, "Are you happy now? Can we shut this off?"
Right.
So,
And I'm
anyway,
sure the conversion rate was probably horrible too.
oh yeah, it was bad.
Oh yeah. All right. So, Jordan Lee Smith asks, I'm launching the second product for my brand. It will be similar to my first. How should I go about PPC given many of the targeted keywords will cross over? So similar products targeting some of the same keywords.
So Amazon has stated you won't compete against yourself in the auction, which is a good thing, right? I think the good thing about kind of having that crossover targeting the same keywords is people see your brand multiple times.
Mhm.
So on average, I think they say with marketing, someone needs to see your brand 7 times before they purchase. So that allows people to see you more, and you get like a brand halo effect of showing
Mhm.
up more. So if you have good branding and people can see it in your listing and in the main image, I think it'll help get sales to both products.
Yeah, exactly. Because it could end up with kind of organic, people who purchased this also purchased.
Yeah.
And then, you can run ASIN targeting ads back and
Yep.
forth
You can
to
do the
yourself.
defensive virtual bundles. You
Mhm.
can do the brand headline search ads with multiple products on there. So
Yeah, exactly. And, I have some keywords where if you go on there, I've got like 6 sponsored ads because all these different products have the same keywords, and I'm okay with that. And,
yeah, when you're building a niche, you're most likely gonna share some keywords.
yeah, exactly. And that's totally okay. And as long as Amazon's not just, you're circling yourself up in the bid and, one outbids, one outbids, one, which they've said it's not going to do that to your account, then go for it. All right. Tanya Bryant asks, is budget optimization the level that Amazon recommends, or should be based on something else?
The level that Amazon recommends. I guess I don't know as far as
I guess at are you talking about the campaign or account or portfolio?
is
Which would
budget
be your
optimization
options?
the level that Amazon recommends, or should it be based on something else? So budget optimization, I don't know about Amazon's recommendation, but as far as like setting the budget originally, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And if that's what you're kind of getting at, and Amazon really they're going to spend your money if you put a high budget in there. There's a lot of people that recommend keeping the budget really high, never really moving it too much, but that depends on what your actual real life budget is. So you want to be conscious of what you have set aside for Amazon ads, especially on launch, because for one, you need to drive traffic, and for two, you need to place that second order. So you want to make sure you have both set up and you're willing to kind of have that daily budget. You could always set the budget in the settings and do like a daily sponsored product level budget, or do portfolio level budgets so you make sure you don't go over a certain amount. But those are temporary things because you want to make sure, like Kevin said earlier, that those best campaigns are running 24/7. Because if you put daily budget levels, your worst campaigns are going to shut off and your best campaigns are going to shut off at the same time. So be careful with those.
Yeah, and one caveat to that, and this could be if Tanya here has a lot of experience on like Google or Meta. So one little asterisk, and you can feel free to correct me if I'm going in a different direction than you were intending, Andy, is that there's an asterisk to Amazon will spend your budget. And that's to the point where they can actually spend it for you. So like if these are the keywords you're going after and there's only so many people searching for them, then you can only spend so much. If you put in $1,000 a day and that's a $30 a day campaign, they can't really go too much above that. Whereas,
now, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say on Google and Facebook, if you say, I want to go from $30 a day to $1,000 a day, they'll just show to less and less relevant people or less and less relevant searches. Mm-hmm. Whereas Amazon on an auto campaign, they might be more likely to do that. But it's not quite as drastic as it is on other platforms. I'll just say that was kind of really more my point. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing I was just going to say too is back to that settings on the budget. Like in your main campaign manager, when you go to settings to set like a daily budget cap, there's also now bubbles that pop up there where it says Amazon can spend up to 100% of your budget, or they could, I believe it says up to 125%. Now they automatically set it at 125%. So if you don't want that to happen, go in there and change it.
Got it. Yeah, because that's a tricky one, and I have noticed too, like they're more and more like the up and down bid. But speaking of bid is really, and correct me if I'm wrong if you disagree, bid is your major lever more so than budget.
Yeah, yep, definitely. And if you're not performing well, lowering your budget's not going to help. It's optimizing your bids, which are going to make the biggest impact.
Good deal. So we're coming up here to the end. We might have a time for a couple more questions. How important is it to advertise have the high volume search terms for a product? I think somebody was typing and maybe even driving. So please don't drive and type while you're listening.
Now, Kevin, you've seen me in plenty of calls while I was driving. So. All right. So for that one, it's important. I would say if it's super broad, like we go back to that garlic press. If you have a stainless steel garlic press, that's like, I don't know, let's say more gourmet, and you're advertising on just the word garlic press, you probably want to start your bids low. I would still advertise there, but start with lower bids because you don't know what your conversion rate is going to be unless you have the budget to spend. I would say still focus on the highly relevant ones with search volume. Even if it has 400 searches a month and the other keyword has 4,000, you might still get more sales from the lower one just because your conversion rate will be a lot higher.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So Diana Dimitrova asks, what budget would you recommend for a brand that's just starting? How would you divide between sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display? That's a loaded question.
And that really depends on your budget, your goals, how many products you have. Let's just say you're launching one product and you want to hit $10,000 in the first month. right? So we just kind of reverse engineer it from there. Let's assume we're going to hit a 50% tacos. So in order to hit a 50% tacos, you need to have $5,000 in ad spend to hit $10,000 in sales. So that's kind of where we set things up with our clients. And I would probably stick with 90%, 90% sponsored products. But that's just like generically, because I've worked with brands that have a really good video and they convert super well with video ads, and it makes up a lot more than just that, 10, 20%. So it depends on a lot of different factors, but that's like the generic kind of scope of it.
Okay, good deal. And then Palash asks, I tried one campaign with one keyword, but I didn't get any impressions after I increased the bid that Amazon suggested bids. What I have to do?
So maybe test out moving it to fixed bids if you're at dynamic bids down only. Sometimes that'll help. Try dynamic bids up and down if you really want to force impressions. And if none of that works, pause it, relaunch it again.
Got it. I think we have time for one more, so I'm going to skip a couple because some of them I think we've kind of already answered similar type questions.
And for that last one, make sure you're indexing for the keyword as well, because there might be like a search problem or category issue that you're running into.
Here's one that's always controversial. Should we negate a good keyword in auto and create its own campaign and have better control?
I don't like to do that. If it's performing well, I leave it and I'll just relaunch it into a new campaign and hopefully get good performance there too. Past performance doesn't always indicate future performance. So if something's good, I don't shut it off. My philosophy.
Yes, that tends to be my philosophy too. It's like there seems to be a history within, like, because if you look at like your bulk operations templates, you'll see that there's like a keyword ID, a campaign, or a record ID. I think it is record ID, campaign ID, ad group ID. There's all these IDs. All these IDs have histories attached to them. So if Amazon likes it, just let this be Amazon's favorite. Let Amazon take favoritism and just test it again in a new campaign with broad or exact or whatever you're going to test it at. All right. So with that, Andy, where would you like folks to go to learn more from you?
I would say my YouTube channel is probably the best. Feel free to sign up for a free audit on my website as well. Happy to do that. What I'll do is I'll send over like a 30-minute video going through your account, giving my best recommendations. And I'll just keep putting out content across, usually LinkedIn, I would say the most, maybe some Twitter, areas like that.
I don't have a Twitter banner made up for you, but we do have.
Okay, I don't do a ton on it. I'm just getting into it. So.
Oh, good deal. All right. So LinkedIn, go look up the Andy Craig, not just any Andy Craig, but the Andy Craig, like the Ohio State University.
Andy Craig was taken. So.
Oh, yes. And then on YouTube, just look up Andy Craig. And then you can head over to ad-habit.com. And you said they can sign up for a free audit.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll definitely recommend folks do that. And so with that, I think I was sharing my screen the whole time here. Oh, no, I wasn't. Never mind.
Oh, no, you're good.
All right. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us. And thank you, Andy, for being on here with us.
Bye, guys.